The day I dug my boss's little boy out of the ground, I stopped being the help and became the crazy maid who hears voices. That's really how it felt. One minute I'm watering roses behind a mansion in River Oaks thinking about overdue bills and my own kids' heart meds, and the next minute I'm on my knees tearing into the dirt because somebody's baby is screaming from under the roses. You know what I mean? It was early quiet, that rich kind of quiet where even the birds sound expensive. I had the hose in one hand, coffee in the other, and then I heard it. This thin, choked little help that didn't sound right at first. I thought it was a TV inside or a cat under the porch. But it came again, weaker, and this time I could feel it in my chest, like the ground itself was crying. I dropped the hose water still spraying everywhere, and I just dropped to my knees by the white rosebush. The soil was too soft, like someone had just dug there and patted it back. And before I could talk myself out of it, I was digging with both hands, nails ripping dirt under my tongue, praying and cussing at the same time, Lord. Please, please, no, not like this. Then my fingers hit fabric, little blue pajamas and skin, ice cold. I grabbed his shoulders and yanked him out so hard his head snapped back. For a second, he just hung there limp, and I thought I was too late. Then he screamed this raw, broken sound, like his throat was made of sandpaper, and I started crying and laughing, at the same time slapping his back, wiping mud out of his mouth. I got you, baby. I got you. Breathe. Come on, breathe for me. It was Noah, 5 years old, son of Daniel Harrington, the billionaire whose name is on half the shiny towers, downtown. The kid people write articles about when he sneezes, and there he was shaking in my arms, fingers digging into my uniform, like I was the only thing holding him to this world. I screamed for help, my voice bouncing off glass and stone, and that's when everything flipped on me. The patio door slammed open, bare feet on tile, and Daniel came running out, not in a suit this time, but an old t-shirt and joggers still somehow looking like money. His eyes hit Noah first, covered in dirt, gasping. Then they hit the hole in the ground, and then they hit me, my hands still buried in the soil, my face streaked with mud and tears, and I watched his whole expression curdle in 1 second. "What did you do?" he shouted, voice already broken. "Sir," I heard him. "He was under the roses. I dug him out. I swear, I just pulled him out." My words came out all tangled. "You monster!" he snapped. And before I could even stand up, he tore Noah out of my arms so fast. The boy cried out in pain. I reached after them just on instinct, fingertips brushing the kid's foot, and his hand hit my face so hard, my ears rang. I fell backward into the rosebush, thorns ripping my arms and legs, hot blood bursting in my mouth. "You buried my son alive! You tried to kill him!" he yelled. And there I was, still tasting dirt, realizing that somehow I'd gone from savior to suspect in under 10 seconds. "Daniel," her voice floated out like it was on a commercial break, smooth, concerned every syllable. Shaped, Vanessa stepped out in this silk robe, hair perfect. One hand pressed to her chest, like she was in some sad movie. "Oh my God," she whispered when she saw the scene, Noah muddy and sobbing. "Me bleeding in the roses, Grace." "What did you do?" she said. My name like it tasted bad. Vanessa Hale, his fiancée, charity events, magazine covers, all that. She moved straight to his side, fingers on his arm. "I told you she's been off," she said, just loud enough for the doorway staff to hear, muttering to herself in the hall, staring at the kids' photos at night. I was afraid something like this might happen. And like she'd thrown meat into a pack of dogs, the others jumped in. One housekeeper called out, "I heard her talking to herself in the garden this morning." Another said, "Always knew she was strange." I tried to push myself out of the bushes. Uniform, torn cheek, throbbing. "Know me?" I said, voice shaking. 3 years. "I've been here." I heard him under the ground. I dug him up, I saved him. But the moment had already passed. I could see it in their eyes. They weren't looking at Grace who bakes extra cookies or Grace who stays late to watch the kids. They were looking at whatever story Vanessa just handed them. "Don't say saved," Daniel spit. "You are done here. You are never coming back in this house." My legs were jelly. I just dropped right back into the dirt and grabbed my own hands. Didn't care how pathetic it looked. "Sir, please, my boy's waiting on heart surgery. I'm behind on every bill. This job is all we have. I swear to God I would never hurt Noah." Vanessa's heels clicked across the stone next to my face. She stepped closer so her shadow fell over me. "She's manipulating you," she murmured to him. "Women like her know how to beg. It's what they do best. Women like her, she didn't have to spell it out. Poor black single mom, easy villain. By the time the ambulance arrived and the cops stepped onto that perfect lawn, the story had settled. I wasn't the woman who pulled a child out of a grave. I was the crazy maid who put him there. They parked me on the front steps while they worked on Noah and peppered me with questions. "Where were you standing when you heard the child?" "Right there by the roses. How did you know he was under the ground?" "I heard him crying," I said. And even as I said it, I could hear how wild it sounded. The officer stopped writing, looked up at me slowly. "You're saying you heard a boy screaming through 6 inches of dirt?" "Yes, sir," I said, because that was the truth, shaky as it sounded. He gave me the kind of look people save for late-night talk radio callers. Then I heard Vanessa inside, her voice floating down the hallway, hitting every note. She talks to herself, detective. She fixates on the kids. I used to lie awake, afraid she might snap. And I swear to you, sitting on that cold marble with my arms stinging and my face swollen, it hit me like a slap all over again. Whoever put Noah in that ground never meant to kill him, clean. They meant for him to be found, and they meant for me to take the fall. That night, after they said Noah was stable, and the last squad car rolled away, I stood in the little staff bathroom, watching rusty water turn pink as it ran over the scratches on my arms. The house felt wrong, like the air was thicker, like the walls were listening. "Miss Grace," a small voice said behind me. I turned, and there was Emma, Noah's big sister, barefoot on the tile in her pajamas, holding that ragged stuffed rabbit she takes everywhere. "Hey, baby," I said, trying to soften my voice. "You should be in bed." She shuffled closer, eyes big and shiny. Daddy said. "You hurt Noah," she whispered, "but—" "I don't think you did." My throat burned. I sat down on the little bench so we were eye level. "What did Miss Vanessa tell you?" I asked. She twisted the rabbit's ear, she said. "Mommy is watching from heaven, and Mommy is mad at you," she said. "You're bad luck, and I shouldn't talk to you." Hearing their dead mother's name come out of that woman's mouth like a weapon made my skin crawl. I took a breath so I wouldn't cuss in front of the child. "Listen to me, Emma," I said. "Your mama loved you. Love like that doesn't turn into hate just because somebody else shows up, and I am not bad luck. Some grown-ups lie to keep kids scared. That doesn't make it true." She studied my face like she was looking for a crack. Then she leaned forward and wrapped her arms around my neck. "I believe you," she whispered. "You know how sometimes a little kid's faith hurts worse than any insult?" Yeah, that happened when she left. I stared at my own reflection in that spotted mirror, swollen cheek, tired eyes, and I knew something. If I walked out of that house just because it was safer for me, those kids were going to be alone in here with a woman who used their own mother's memory to control them. So I prayed, like I haven't prayed in years, lying on my narrow bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. "Lord, if you put me here for a reason, don't let me run, not this time." And upstairs, I swear I could hear Vanessa laughing in the hallway like nothing had happened. The next day, the Harrington estate became a circus, reporters at the gate, neighbors slowing down just to stare at the crime scene staff, whispering, like the walls had ears. Nobody looked me in the eye except to move away a little faster. Funny how people who shared gum with you last week suddenly talk like they never knew you once. There's a headline floating around. Vanessa floated through it all in soft robes and perfect ponytails, taking calls on speaker about how traumatized the children are, but somehow always loud enough for someone to overhear. Daniel didn't yell again, he didn't have to. The way he looked at me when we passed in the hall said everything like I'd broken the world. He had left, and for a while I just did what I always do. I cleaned. I scrubbed mud off tile. I folded tiny socks, because when your whole life is chaos, chores are easier than thinking. But every time I walked by that rose bed, I felt like the ground was humming, like there was more buried there than one terrified little boy. That afternoon, I went back to the spot, kneeling in the dirt, like some crazy woman talking to the earth. I pressed my hand down, and my fingers hit something hard. I dug around it and pulled out a small silver hair clip, delicate with tiny blue stones. I wiped it on my uniform and flipped it over on the back engraved VC. Vanessa's invitations all said Vanessa Hale, but I remembered a delivery guy a few weeks back calling her Ms. Cruz. Before she corrected him with that tight smile, my stomach dropped. I slipped the clip into my pocket. And that night when I got back from checking on my own son at my sister's house, I locked myself in the laundry room and called Officer Reyes, the one cop who'd ever talked to me like I was a person. Before all this, it's Grace, I said. From the Harrington place, I need you to listen before you decide I'm crazy. I told him about the garden, the clip, the initials, the way Vanessa had framed me in front of everybody. He was quiet for a long minute. You know how this sounds, right? He finally said. The main suspect just happens to find jewelry with the fiancée's initials in the dirt, yeah. I know how it sounds, I said. But this isn't some movie. This is my life. And a kid woke up under a rose bush and somehow I'm the only one who heard him. I'm telling you, something's wrong with that woman. You just check the name Vanessa Cruz and see if trouble follows her. He sighed. That cop sigh. That means I'm about to do it anyway. I'll see what I can dig up, Walker. Don't do anything dumb. Too late, I muttered and hung up. After that, I started watching Vanessa closer, how she touched the kids, how she talked when she thought no one was listening. She'd clutch Noah to her chest and tell reporters on the phone how fragile he was now. Then you'd see her fingers dig into his arm just a little too tight. When he squirmed, she'd tell Emma soft as honey. Mommy sees everything, even from heaven, especially when someone lies, and the girl's shoulders would rise up around her ears one afternoon, hiding in the pantry, pretending to organize canned beans. Emma whispered to me she told Noah he was supposed to stay quiet, she said. If he told about the garden, she'd put him back. I felt this cold crawl up my spine. And then Daniel came into the kitchen and placed a brown bottle in my hand. Give Noah this before his nap, he said. Vanessa's trauma specialist recommended it. He's not sleeping. The label wasn't from their regular doctor. It was some out-of-state clinic, the name I couldn't even pronounce. With respect, sir, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Maybe he ain't sleeping, because someone put him under 6 inches of dirt. Maybe it's not his brain that needs medicine. Maybe it's this house. His eyes flash. Froze. You don't get to question how I care for my son, he said quietly. Vanessa has done more for this family than you ever will, and he walked out, leaving that bottle like a loaded gun on the counter. Poor women in rich houses don't get security teams or private investigators. What we get is time in empty rooms and eyes. People like to forget we have. So I used that when Vanessa left for Pilates or manicures. I stopped folding towels and started looking. First in her bathroom, where behind a basket of fancy skincare, I found a little travel pouch inside where 3 syringes, pre-filled, unlabeled, tucked under them. A folded piece of paper with a doctor's name who didn't match the clinic on the bottle. Then, in her bedroom, in the top drawer under silk slips, I found a red folder. A neat stack of passports spilled out, same face. 3 different names next to them. A copy of a death certificate for a 6-year-old girl named Mila Cruz died overseas in an accident. The hair clip in my pocket felt heavier that night. In my tiny room, I pulled out the beat-up spiral notebook I'd been using since I started working there. The one where I wrote down anything strange so I wouldn't gaslight myself later. I added a new page VC clip in rosebud passports. Vanessa Valeria Lana, same face death certificate. Mila 6, Emma says, she'll put him back. It looked insane on paper, but it also looked like a pattern, and patterns don't lie. People, do you know what I mean? The real twist for me came in the oldest part of the house, the east wing, with the unused nursery. One evening I walked down that hallway with my heart in my throat, remembering how Noah had shuffled out of there one night, like he'd seen a ghost when I pushed the door open. Dust everywhere, old crib-faded wallpaper, a toy chest in the corner. But it was quiet, too quiet. Then I noticed one vent cover that looked newer than the rest. I knelt. Unscrewed it, reached inside and pulled out a folded photo. It showed a younger Vanessa with no makeup, holding a little girl with dark curls and big eyes. They were standing in front of a cheap apartment somewhere, V and Mila. Rio was scribbled on the back. My hands started shaking. Miss Grace, came this tiny voice behind me. I turned and there was Noah in his dinosaur pajamas clutching his stuffed truck. He saw the picture, and his whole face changed. "That's Mila," he whispered, barely moving his lips. "She cried a lot. Miss Vanessa said she was bad. She said if I told about the dirt, she'd put me in the wall like Mila." I hugged him so fast I nearly knocked us both over. "Nobody's putting you anywhere," I said into his hair, "not as long as I'm breathing." Later that night, I called Reyes again, told him about Mila, the photo in the vent, the syringes, the doctor's name. I could hear him typing on the other end. "We ran Valeria Cruz, like you asked. He said there are sealed foster files missing kids. No convictions, but your fiancé has a shadow, following her walker. I'm not supposed to say this, but your gut's not wrong. We just need something here, something solid." That's when it hit me. The only person who could really blow this open wasn't a cop or a neighbor. It was the same man who had slapped me in his yard, the one person Vanessa needed to believe her more than anything. I found Daniel in his study, sitting in the dark under a huge photo of his late wife and the kids, glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked older than he had a week ago. Like all at once he'd realized money can't fix everything. I put the passports, the death certificate, the copies of the doctor's note, and the photo of Mila on his desk, my voice trembling, but steady enough to be heard. I walked him through it, the clip, the aliases, the missing girl, the threats to Emma and Noah. His hands shook as he flipped through the papers. "Do you realize what you're accusing her of?" he finally said. "You're saying the woman I love hurt my son, that she's done this before." I nodded. "I'm saying everywhere she goes, little kids disappear or end up in the ground, and your boy woke up under dirt with her jewelry buried next to his face while she pointed at the maid. If I'm wrong, I lose whatever's left of my life. If I'm right, and I shut up, your kids lose theirs." You could actually see the moment doubt slipped into his eyes. It looked like betrayal and relief all mixed together. "What do you want me to do?" he asked quietly. "Have dinner with her tonight," I said. "Right out on that back patio, just the two of you. Ask her about Mila while someone listens. If I'm crazy, you'll know. If I'm not, well, then you'll really know." That night, the terrace looked like a magazine spread, string lights, white tablecloth, wine glasses glowing in the evening light. Vanessa came out in a dress that looked like it cost more than my car, smiling, like she'd already won something inside the house. I stood in the dark, by the sliding door, an earpiece tucked under my hair, a little recorder hidden in a flower pot. Outside, my heart pounding so loud, I could barely hear through the speaker. I heard Daniel's voice trying to sound casual. "Who is Mila?" he asked. The silence that followed was thick, then she laughed too high. "Why are we talking about old wounds at dinner?" she said. "He didn't let it go. You told me you never had kids, that you never wanted them, so. Who is the little girl in this picture with you?" I could hear the photo hit the table, her tone dropped. "She was a foster case," Vanessa said softly. "The system dumped her on me. They failed her over and over. I tried to fix her, to make her better. She still left. They always leave." Daniel's voice shook. "Did you bury my son because he reminded you of her?" There was another long pause, then her voice came back. "If you had just let him go, he wouldn't have been so scared. He wouldn't have looked at me like that. That was enough for me." I shoved the door and stepped outside just as her chair scraped back. She grabbed the wine bottle like a weapon. I reached for her wrist. On instinct, we struggled. The bottle slipped and shattered on the stone-red wine and glass, everywhere. She hissed in my face. "You don't belong here. This was never your story, funny." I shot back, my hand still clamped around her arm. "I was thinking the same thing about you," sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Reyes and his team came charging through the side gate with their guns holstered, but their voices loud, ordering her to step back. Vanessa didn't fight, she just went still. Then she smiled at me, this small, hollow smile, and as they cuffed her, she leaned in and whispered, "You remind me of her, that's why I couldn't stand you." They pulled her away, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I watched someone else leave that estate in shame. They dug up more of the yard that night and found a little metal box near the hydrangeas inside, were tiny things that meant everything. Baby bracelets, a pacifier, a hospital band from overseas. Names that matched the missing kids Reyes had hinted at. The DA called it a pattern. The judge called it no bail. The news called it a monster exposed. But for me, the only thing that mattered was that when I went upstairs to the kids' room and sat on the edge of the bed, Noah grabbed my hand and whispered, "Is she gone and Emma still clutching her rabbit?" asked, "Are you staying?" And I could finally say, "Yes, baby, she's gone and nobody is putting you in the dark again, not on my watch, and mean it." Life didn't suddenly turn into a fairy tale. After that, it never does. But the house felt different, it's lighter, like it could breathe again. The staff went back to talking to me like I was human. Some even apologized for the things they'd said. You'd be surprised how many people suddenly remember your kindness once it's safe to be on your side. Daniel started spending more time with the kids and less time hiding in his office one night. We were sitting on the back steps, watching Emma and Noah paint hearts on the patio with chalk. He cleared his throat and said, "I talked to my lawyers. If anything happens to me, you're their legal guardian. If you want to be." I watched Emma draw a superhero with an apron and curly hair. "Who's that?" I asked. She grinned. "That's you. Her name is Truth Teller." I looked back at him and said, "Feels like I already took the job." He smiled for real then. Not that polite rich man smile, something softer, grateful. Months later, I got a letter from the women's prison inside. It was neat handwriting. I recognized. "They call me a monster," Vanessa wrote. "Maybe I am. Monsters are grown in rooms where nobody listens. I didn't bury Noah because I hated him. I buried him because he sounded like Mila, and I couldn't stand it. Again, you stole the ending I wanted." She talked about sealed cases, about the system, about how she thought she was protecting kids by controlling them. It was equal parts confession and excuse. I handed it to Reyes. He handed it to a federal agent. Now they think she knows where more missing girls' stories are hidden, and she wants to trade pieces of truth for a softer bed, the big twist. I never saw coming is that somewhere out there might be a grown woman who once answered to the name Mila. No record of her death, a file that says ran away, maybe she's alive, maybe she's not, maybe she doesn't want to be found. And I think about that when I water the new white rose bush we planted, with a little plaque that reads, "For the ones we remember." I think about how fast a house full of people believed the worst about me and the best about a stranger with nice hair. I think about how close a little boy came to dying because a broken adult wanted to rewrite her own story. And I think about how sometimes the only difference between being the villain and the hero in people's minds is who gets to speak first. So yeah, that's what happened to me when I went from the maid who hums gospel while she mops to suspected child killer to legal guardian in one long, ugly season of my life. And if you've listened this far, I want to know what you think. Is someone like Vanessa just evil? Or did the system and her own trauma twist her into what she became? If you were the judge, would you ever give her a second chance knowing what she did and what she almost did? Do you think justice actually showed up here, or does it still feel unfinished because Mila is out there somewhere in the dark? Parts of the story, drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you've ever seen somebody use their pain as an excuse to hurt people who never hurt them. Or if you've ever been treated like the villain in a story you were actually saving. I read everything y'all share, and who knows, your story might be the next one we bring into the light.